data practice and believes it's a challenge we need to take on together. And your example was just a brilliant way to start. So I'd like to start by saying Yuma and acknowledge the Indigenous people on whose lands I am today, the Ngambri Ngunnawal people, and pay my respects to leaders past, present and emerging. So here we are in 2022, and as Sally has said, great enthusiasm. We all need to use research data. We all need to know it's managed. It's a journey we've been on for quite a while. But there's so many complex issues that we are only partway along the journey. And I'd like in particular to thank Nicola Burton and Lyle Winton from AIDC for the work that they're doing that I will be talking about in this set of slides as well. So data's a vital issue. It's really critical to all of the work that we do, the work that we do in libraries to help digital scholarship succeed, the work that is done by researchers, the work that is done by funders to make sure that e-research happens. And we've seen quite a significant evolution in the way we're thinking about electronic research and data. We used to talk about e-research, and we just say now it is research, and electronic digital data is just fundamental to practice. We see it discussed as a national policy issue. So while we work very hard in our institutions, and each researcher works very hard for every activity that they're engaged with, Australia actually sees that it is vital that we make some national steps forward. And so we've had the National Collaborative Research Infrastructure Strategy from our government for almost a decade now that has launched a number of initiatives to try and help everyone through this very complex set of problems. So just as a bit of a context, in Australia, we've got 39 public universities, all with amazing researchers producing amazing research. We educate about 1.5 million students, employ almost 130,000 staff, and we contribute around $41 billion to the economy. About a third of that is from direct research activity. There've been a whole raft as well in Australia of reports on the importance of data, focusing very much on government data. Some of them, a number of them have referred to the importance of research data, the importance of sharing that data, and the importance, particularly from the Australian Academy of Science report, for ensuring that data is fair, is accessible, is findable, and all of them acknowledging that we are really still, despite almost 20 years of work in this area, still in the early stages of developing a mature infrastructure across the nation and developing skill sets and other strategic issues to be able to make research data work. So lots of work has gone into it. It's really recognised as a national issue, but we are still at the beginning of the journey. So in our universities, we've been undertaking quite significant areas of work, particularly with support from the Australian National Data Service and now the Australian Research Data Commons. Libraries, research areas have really focused on the development of skills and knowledge, and that's probably been well established for a long time, particularly skills around metadata, around life cycle planning, with a lot of training to help build that capacity. We've seen projects that build on rights and data management skills delivered in a range of regions and through a range of collaborative activities. And the emphasis on that has been collaboration across the whole of the sector to be able to achieve improvements in practice and be able to achieve improved infrastructure for things like storage. At the Australian National University, two examples of how this has been implemented are our Research Data Management Training Hub, which sits on a LibGuide and results in, it supports training, particularly for early career researchers and PhD students, and the Data Commons Library that enables research to be stored, small research. Supercomputer contains much more research and shared, including through Research Data Australia, which is the national discovery portal. So we've got a number of pieces of infrastructure in place, but the real question is, what are the critical issues and how do we holistically create a consistent experience across universities that really assists researchers to manage their data, to understand how it needs to be supported and to be able to tap into the resources to be able to support them. So the Australian Research Data Commons, which was created as the result of the merger of 3 services, including the National Data Service, which had done a lot of work on infrastructure, was formed in around 3 years ago in order to provide integrated support funded by the Commonwealth Government. And that pulling together of services to be able to create a national perspective on data management, software platforms, storage, and people and policy is really creating an environment where we can discuss the issues and what needs to happen nationally. So I'm really enthused by the fact that when we're thinking about research data management, we're not just thinking, well, a researcher has to manage their data and the library has to be the storehouse and the metadata. It's really about saying, well, how can we have an effective national infrastructure for national benefit? How can we transform our national research capability to develop proper national capabilities that allow industry engagement and international impact and engagement through working together? So in working on the whole nature of research data and governance, we really need to bring a lot of aspects together. We need to make sure that we have people who have the knowledge to be able to effectively manage data. They have to have the skills, they have to be able to integrate the thinking around all of the requirements, huge range of requirements that are around resources, researchers. We need to have a whole lot of policies so that in the institution, the policy and procedure environment is clear and each researcher doesn't have to do a discovery uniquely. We need to have a real focus on research outcomes, which includes how we can have the partnerships to be able to make things work, how we're able to deliver new solutions by integrating the services across our universities, and also how we can have the tools for things like research data planning, for things like research data storage, and how we can have them in a transparent and effective way, rather than some of the procedures now where we have disconnect around, for example, ethics management, data storage, privacy, cybersecurity. So everything is quite complex at the moment from the researcher's perspective of meeting those needs. So the Australian Research Data Commons has initiated a project called Institutional Research Data Management Policies and Procedures to start enabling universities to have a conversation about what needs to happen and be able to produce the national if you like, pieces of kit so that we can actually have procedures, policies, planning processes, data management planning processes available to researchers and universities to be able to effectively support researchers. So in taking this project forward with 25 universities, we really are framing solutions that will meet the main legislative requirement for researchers in Australia, and that is under the Australian Code of Responsible Conduct of Research Practice, which every university is required to maintain. And often that code sets in bodies in procedures and is aspirational and can be very challenging for a researcher to understand how they have to comply with all of these requirements. So the requirement to ensure that there are a suite of policies and procedures that are consistent with those responsibilities is something that we believe we can tackle to be able to have a more effective system that will support research data management. So we have an action map in the policy document that includes the 4 components of rights, which really are often the legislative basis and other institutional policy basis that researchers need to comply with: security, cybersecurity, IT architecture, data standards and guidelines. So record retention, how long do research data collections need to last for? How can they be classified so that they can be used? How can we have standards? And then also from the university's requirements, how can we make sure that we are meeting the audit and risk requirements that are compliant with the university's financial management and risk management processes? And many of these are also articulated by funders. So it's the reporting, it's the management, it's all of these aspects coming together. How can we create a new environment that will support research data management in a way that will allow all of these to be unpacked? So what have we been doing over the last 18 months while we've been working on this project? Well, we've been working very hard to produce a framework because we thought the most important aspect of our first step would be to understand all of the areas that we need to have good management policy and procedures to be able to support the work of researchers. So we broke into working groups and looked at all of the different aspects around active data management, cultural change, institutional policies, research data management planning, retention and disposal, open research and data publication, sensitive data and support training and guidance. And then there were some additional elements that weren't at the high level. So in putting this guideline together, which describes the nature of the challenge for researchers and the nature of the challenge, in essence, for research officers, IT areas and libraries to be able to provide support in, we've come up with a set of issues with some preliminary case studies that are openly accessible, and there are links in this presentation that enable improvements in practice in universities. But the question is how we take that into action. So a number of universities have policies that map closely to this. Many others are evolving policies. At ANU, our data management policy, data governance policy, and half a dozen procedures will be out in about a month. It's been on a 12-month journey of consultation within the university to make sure it's effective. But we really need to have more guidance on how to make this live for researchers. So the project has kicked off a number of projects on issues like data retention and disposal, RDM training, culture change, as well as producing more model policy documents, training materials for data stewards and data classification. And all of these activities will result in publicly accessible documentation, case studies, guidelines. Now, at this point, what I wanted to just explain in the Australian context, and I'm sure this is the same in the US and Europe and throughout Asia, the context in which we need to deliver our research data management support needs to consider not just one piece of legislation, such as the Code of Responsible Use of Research. There are a whole range of legislative requirements around that. So every university has its own act. Some are state or, in our case, Commonwealth government entities. So we have other governance acts. There's a Privacy Act, Archives Act, Security of Critical Infrastructure. And when we map our policies, we need to have an overarching framework that we're able to see how that needs to translate into guidance for researchers, because none of us expect researchers to have to read and interpret the legislation. That would be something that would guarantee they would need a good lie down and a lot of cups of coffee to come up from. So in doing this sort of mapping and having this for each institution, it will enable us to frame when all of the documentation and guidelines are available, how the good data management practices can be mapped into the procedures that need to underpin legislation. And then there's mapping as well about who can take responsibility to deliver the solutions that will help. For example, some libraries do data training, some research areas do data training, some data storage guidelines sit in human ethics, some sit in other corporate entities. So it's how do we map all of this into a simple and clear framework so the researchers can be able to be effectively supported and the institution can comply with these requirements. So a number of universities have done quite a lot of deep thinking about this, and these next two slides are from Monash University, where the mapping again of these legal requirements has resulted in a framework which you will see in common with some other universities where responsibilities are allocated. So the researcher is often the data producer, and the research resources that they research data that they are collecting, they may well be the custodian as well, but there may be other responsibilities. For example, their material may be recorded in an integrated research management system, in which case the executive steward may be a deputy vice-chancellor. So we need to have processes where our management of data can be done effectively by the researcher, but the university can support that by having evolving systems that will keep moving to meet the needs of researchers, and the researchers can be freed to do the research, but the improvements to infrastructure can be managed by the university. This is another example of life cycle from Monash of that life cycle management. So you can see the different aspects that need to come in a university to help the researcher get to the point of being able to apply for a grant, be successful in a grant, appropriately being able to get a training, access, make it all work. So one of the important things about this project is it's enabling a national shared discussion of researchers, research support areas, librarians, technologists, and policy makers to deliver a shared set of outcomes that can be used by every university in Australia, and in fact can be models that can be adapted elsewhere in the world. So the outcomes so far have been some policy model documents for institutions, a great awareness of data repositories and data management response planning systems have been recorded that link all aspects of life, and work is being done on a number of multi-institution projects to produce some templates that are able to integrate over the whole life cycle of a research data project, a project that has research data to enable that to happen. And guidance is being produced steadily through this project. And the intention is that we will have a nationally active and engaged approach to data management that is researcher focused, so that much of the good work that's already been done developing skills, developing individual researcher training programs in universities and developing repositories can be articulated into a holistic support for researchers and for research across the nation. Information in particular that will produce quite complex guidelines, and we're consulting with the national funder on that. So that is the end of my presentation. I think I'm on time. I could talk for hours about this. But I think it's time for the next speaker, and we can talk about lots of things in the discussion part of this.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Roxanne. I think the presentations is absolutely brilliant. Managing data in institution level already a difficult thing to do. But what you just present, it's such a wonderful project. I believe that everything already being already thought of by the team. Yes, so you are thinking that there needs to be of course policies, people. We need to think about technology, outcomes, how the framework is going to be, and the work in the past 18 months. I think, as you mentioned, it can be even replicated with, of course, a little bit of modifications here and there, not just in Australia, but even in other parts of the world. So I think this is such a great project. Thank you so much for sharing. We already have a couple of questions, but before we go into the discussion, the Q&A, I believe we can go with our second speaker. Yeah, so I'll for the second speaker, I'll introduce Pak Ferry. But before that, just a quick announcement for everyone, for all the attendees. Again, if you have any later on in the discussion part. Okay. So thank you so much, Roxanne. I'm going to introduce our second speaker for today. Let me share my screen. Okay. Yeah. So for our second session, we have Ferry Effendi. So Ferry is a secretary of Publications and Intellectual Property Rights from Universitas Airlangga in Surabaya. Profile: Ferry is a secretary at the Institute of Innovations, Journal, Publications and Intellectual Property Rights from University of Airlangga in the Department of Advanced Nursing, Faculty of Nursing, at this, of course, the same university. So he holds a PhD in nursing, which focusing on Indonesian nurses migration. In addition, he also had been involved in various resources for the help at the Ministry of Health Indonesia. It's with community health and nurse migration. So I believe through his perspective from this department, we will be able to see how data also managed at this time from institutional point of view. So with that, I give the floor and the stage to Ferry.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Johan. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, let me express my sincere gratitude to Elsevier and also the team. We are having here Sally, Messi, and Vishal, and also to our great speaker, Roxanne. Yeah, it is nice to see you at this prestigious moment. And many thanks, especially for the Elsevier, to the continued support to Universitas Airlangga. This morning, I'm very honored to have an opportunity to set a topic with a title. Let me share my PPT. Yeah. Research data, why it matters and how to manage. Yeah. I think important aspect and critical aspect regarding the research data management, and I would like to share with all of you from the perspective of my institution and myself as a faculty member and researchers. So talking a little bit about my university, Universitas Airlangga, we have 15 faculties with 2 schools, and we provided 174 study program with 6 campuses. And our study programs various, ranging from the health sciences, life sciences, physical sciences, and also social sciences. And so far, our student body have around 41,000 students with more than 2,000 academic staff and more than 2,000 non-teaching academic staff. And in terms of the research and practice facilities, we do have a university teaching hospital, Institute of Tropical Disease, hospital for infectious tropical disease, dental hospital, and animal hospital. Sorry, I think And then in terms of the world ranking university, especially from the QS World Ranking University in 2020, we are very happy that we are on the rank of 369 in the world, and then 113 in Asia, 19 in Southeast Asia, and 4th in Indonesia. To the Times Higher Education World University Ranking, we are on the place of 1,201. And Universitas Airlangga very welcome for the potential collaboration with international partners for the following programs, include staff exchange, student exchange, research collaboration, and joint publication on description in the form of numeric characters, symbol, pictures, math, sign, writing, sound, represent the actual situation or indicate an ideal object, condition, or situation. So you can imagine regarding the definition of this data that the topic and also very diverse. So all from the raw data to the process data. It means that from the idea generation, funding opportunity, current application, current work date, until further stages of the journey of the life cycle of our research. It should be tracked, preserved, accessible, discoverable. Also, it should be settable, comprehensible, reviewed, and reusable. So this is actually a challenge, for university, because as you understand that every day university produce a lot of data. So many faculty members, many researchers, also doing a lot of projects, and I believe they are producing such a huge amount of data. So what is research management? Research data management is a term that describes the organization, the storage, preservation, and in research project. So it is started from research planning, active state of research, and also sharing results. And the benefit of the research data management is one, we can easily find and understand data. Second, we can also increase the impact, make research reproducible, increase reuse potential, and also comply with funder mandates. And that's why the research data management is really matters, for university and researcher life, as a responsible science movement. So we talk about the national policy in Indonesia according to the law number 11, year 2019, concerning the national system of science and technology. So actually the law mandated as a technical guideline, for the implementation required to submit and also retain research data. So to support data disclosure at the institutional level, research institution implement mandatory submission and storage policies, by providing an institutional. So in general, the law also mandated that we should comply with the FAIR principle. First is the findable. So the research data management should be easy to find by both human and machine. And so the research data also both human and machine. And then I is interoperable. So metadata should be a standardized term, and have references to other metadata and be machine actionable. And then the last one is reusable. So metadata are sufficiently well described for both human and computers to be able to understand them and have a clear and accessible data usage license. This is a local repository at our university. So you may take a look at the repository.unet.ac.id, for the purpose of sharing result of our research output. So here I would like to share with all of you our journey, using Scholar UNED Elsevier, and pure here bring information, from all the data sources, into a single and secure platform. And it has really strengthened our research governance, in terms of the research information management, by having this platform integrate and also communicate, with all of the data, within our university. So here we can take a look some features later at the next slide. So what is the function of the newest platform, by Scholar UNED or Pure? Actually, the Scholar UNED integrate two biggest data, data and also external data. Internal data, as I mentioned before, we do have a big and various amount of data produced by institution and also unit and our researchers. Yeah, it is include from media report, funding application, yeah, affiliation and collaborators, yeah, activities, online sources, yeah, publication, equipment, yeah, research output, patent, intellectual property, grant and awards, yeah, human resources, website, Excel, and also student. So this is very complete, yeah, and also all of the data captured by Scholar UNED. And then the second one, we also can use this platform to all of the data from the external data. So from the external data, it can be from Scopus, from Crossref, PubMed, Web of Science, Mendeley, yeah, and many other external databases. Yeah. So we can compile for both, yeah, internal and external data, and we can use for the centralized data set, yeah, and also we can generate a report, progress review, and compliance monitoring. Yeah, this is for the purpose of insight-based decision, and then we can also use the data for the research output, reusable data, researcher profile, and this is actually for the purpose of collaboration. And also we can use and analyze the data of funding management, awarded grants, application tracking, and compliance monitoring. Yeah, this is for the increased funding opportunities. And finally, we can use the data for the UN Sustainable Development Goals reporting, yeah, press, media, equipment, prices, project, yeah, for the purpose of global impact and recognition. Yeah, so I think Flex and also really helpful flows, yeah, that help our institution to compile various data into one platform. So in a simple way, the Scholar UNED, yeah, on Pure, yeah, centralize all of the research data, yeah, and yeah, we can have I think a great benefit, yeah, for us, yeah, especially when we want to use the data for the decision making, yeah, and also for the so how reputation and advance open science by demonstrating the research expertise and impact to strategic partners, government and funders. Yeah, here you can see the researcher profile. Yeah, and then the name. Yeah, the affiliation, and you can go deeper with the department and also the research unit, and also you can find many important and critical information, yeah, regarding the social media, and also how many publications